evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, the largest single-screen drive-in in the United States. We're certainly glad you could be with us this evening, and don't forget the concession stand is open with all kinds of great things to eat and drink.
.3 Mahoning Drive-In Radio, your old friend Virgil back once again for another exciting episode of the podcast. As you guys know, the only podcast dedicated to the love and revival of our beloved drive-in culture. Joined as always by my co-host and general manager extraordinaire, Mark. Say hello, my friend.
Hello.
Also joined by Mahoning owner, Mahoning projectionist, King Jeff. Jeff in the house. Say hello, my friend.
Good night, Dick.
I love it. And we are riding on a high as we're hitting a stride in our 2023 season. And we figured we would pop in and talk about some of the stuff that we've been dealing with internally, operational stuff, things that we got to deal with on a regular basis that may help the regular fan or the folks out there who are into the idea of the operations of a drive-in and how you make this puppy run. Mark, why don't you let us know? What's the dealio?
So one of the things that we've probably talked about before on the show, but I wanted to bring up again because it's something I've been dealing with directly the last several weeks, is what happens when we have a sellout show. And I don't mean a show where we've compromised our morals or standards for profit. I mean a show where that might have happened, but we also sold every ticket we have to sell. So how do we determine what a sellout is? How do we handle it? And what I say internally, why does sold out mean sold out? We joke. We love our customers. Not everybody understands how things work and why, and that's why we do this show.
Can I take a guess? Is it because there's no more room?
Is there some reasoning behind the reason
Well,
you
I mean,
guys are not selling tickets anymore?
The first time we had a sellout that I was around for, it was a Camp Blood. As we record this, we're about to go into Camp Blood 2023. It was a Camp Blood show where the lot became so packed, we felt like we could not safely, we couldn't fit any more cars. And it wouldn't be, really safe to have more people in. So we had to lock the gate. And this was before advanced tickets. We had to basically put a sign out written on styrofoam saying sold out. That's it. And now we live in a world post-pandemic where, not that the pandemic is totally gone, but you know what I mean? Since the big pandemic, we have online ticket sales, and it helps us gauge a lot of things. It helps us plan for shows. If we see a lot of advanced ticket sales, we know we're going to need more staff, and we're going to need more merch, and we're going to need more food and all that stuff. But also it lets people, secure a ticket so they know they're going to get in. And we capped that number. I believe it's at 650 right now.
Correct. Sometimes it shifts depending if it's a family show that offers children's tickets. That will certainly open up some spots because obviously a child under 13 isn't driving their own vehicle there. It's been a real process figuring out what our limits are, how we can best handle these gigantic crowds. And, here's the easiest way to put it. When we first got together, we were getting excited when we pulled in 10 cars, 15 cars. And over the years, the draw of the Mahoning has become so big, so loved and beloved, that we've really tried our hardest over the last, 4 years to really put a structure to what we do here. Not just for the ease of the customer, but for the ease of the folks running it, which, as you know, is a handful of people. So we really leaned into, around the pandemic, the idea of there are things available to us that we can easily use and implement that would make our lives so much easier. As great as the little rascals coming in and figuring it out on the day thing worked for so long, there's just way too much expectation, moving parts. When we're bringing in humongous guests, there's really no room for let's make it work type of thing. There's still an element of that every night, but I think that's been the big shift over the last couple of years, is really just how we run things.
I agree. Fine tuning it.
Yeah, turning the screws, tightening the screws. And it's really worked well. The online ticket sales we did, to show behind the curtain for Joe Bob, we sold, I believe it was 750 tickets, which, a Joe Bob event isn't bringing a ton of kids. It's bringing people from all over the country. That put us to the test as far as the amount of people that we can fit. And then you toss on top of that a film production crew, bands, a slew of other vehicles that are coming in involved with the event. And it was just too much. So we called the 650 our quote unquote safe sellout. Could we still jam some people in there? Yeah, probably. They might be in a spot that's, not ideal. They might have to park and walk off to a spot that is ideal. But there's something to be said about the experience. We don't want people to have to come and pay to stand in lines for hours. So that 650 number really is the sweet spot for us that we have found. Doesn't jam up the line. It doesn't jam up the experience. Everybody's still able to get everything that they love about the Mahoning without feeling like it's Disney World,
That's what I always say. It's like you don't really want it to be like Epcot, where everything you want to do is a half hour standing in line. We don't want it to get to the point where we're running out of everything. And I always say it's the number that our infrastructure can most handle. It's coming up on what, 75-year-old theater? Is my math right or wrong on that?
Yeah, 75.
No, that's right.
And
Next year is 75.
it's pretty vintage in most of its operations. And I'm talking about the pipes, if you know what I mean. And I think you do. And you want it to all just function. You don't want all the garbage to be overflowing and the dumpsters to be overflowing and the long lines at the bathrooms. And 650, is right about it. And I always have to tell people there's the stages of death, the anger, bargaining, and all this other stuff. That happens at sellouts. It's actually really pretty close. People get mad that we sell out, that they miss the ticket. And then the bargaining comes in. And I field a lot of messages through all of our social media and email and everything about people saying, I missed out on getting a ticket, but my friend is coming. What if I came in their car? And what if I put one at the gate? And what if I parked somewhere else and walked in? And all these what ifs. And I always have to try to be, you hate to be cruel or mean and not customer service friendly. But if we said yes to everybody, we'd have another 100 or more people on the lot some nights. And it would defeat the purpose of why we stop it at 650. And, it's based on people, not cars. In theory, if 65 cars rolled up with 10 people in each of them, the lot would look mostly empty from the sky, but it would still be that same number of people to deal with. So we have to be firm about that. Occasionally we wiggle it a little bit, and we let more people in. But we try to, do our best on that. So we've had multiple sellout shows in the last 3 weeks, and that's why this topic is kind of fresh on my mind.
And we will have several coming up through the end of the year without a doubt. I think all of our annuals perform to the point where most regulars know not to hesitate or not to wait. And, Mark hit it right on the nose. Like, people come out of the woodwork as soon as it's announced that there's a sellout, and, they're asking for favors. They're trying to find ways to make it work. And we always go out of our way on the social media to alert people about a low ticket status that we run into, which would mean that we are 75% sold out on tickets, on capacity. So that normally is the trigger for, a fan or a friend of a fan to let that person know, hey, you might want to pull that trigger now because they're getting close. So you can't say it's a lack of trying to inform everybody. It's that FOMO situation. They have a real fear of missing out if all of a sudden it's like, yep, you can't go. You see all your friends got their tickets. It's going to be the happening of the year. I snoozed.
It was really, really a lot to deal with for the Joe Bob show. That was insane with the number. And I bet
biggest learning lesson for us, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I bet myself into pretzels trying to make things work for people. With people would come back and say, normally we have a very strict no refunds policy, but sometimes, I will say, shouldn't say it out loud, but sometimes if it's a sold out show and people want to refund their tickets and there's a lot of demand for those tickets, like with David Lynch recently was a prime example. A lot of people ultimately couldn't make it, but a ton of people wanted to go and were upset that the show had sold out. So I was able to refund tickets and they were immediately resold to people. So we're not losing out if we do it that way. So once in a great while I'll do that, but it's a lot of communication with people, and it's a lot of people, as you say, looking for favors or with special circumstances. We do the best we can, but we're really only a handful of people, and not everybody does this as a full-time job. And those of us who sort of do have a lot on our plate. So we can't always at the last minute deal with emails like on the day and stuff like that. Closer we get to a show, the busier we get. But, we do our best. This sort of leads into a similar topic with this. Don't ever buy tickets from somebody on Facebook or Instagram who says they have them for sale. They will post comments in our events. They will post multiple comments on multiple events. The language is always shockingly similar. They're tickets. We don't know if they're bots or if they're just doing copy and paste, and it looks like they're real Facebook or Instagram accounts. They're not. They'll often say, I refer to it internally as the Mahoning death curse, because a show will sell out and suddenly everybody's mother's dying and they need to get They don't make light of anybody who's really going through that. But I screenshot them, and eventually on Patreon I'm going to post a collection of them, because it's amusing when you see them en masse, because they always say, my mother just died and we're terribly upset. Please like my post, and I'm just like, what?
Send me PM.
And this has been going on since we've done online tickets. Usually it's for the big shows, but sometimes for the small shows. Like one time it was for a small show that we had just announced, and one of these scammer posts popped up, and it's like, I'm selling my tickets because I can't make it. And I'm like, you fool, I know we've sold 0 tickets for this show. What tickets are you selling?
We just announced this.
Or when we showed the Goonies and it was a free ticket that you had to get in advance.
Oh my God, that was the best.
Looking to sell at a discount. I'm like, what, you're going to pay somebody to take them? They're scammers and they're fakes, and we try to stay on top of that. And if we see that, we block that account so they can't post anywhere on our pages, and it immediately deletes all of their posts, because they usually take the carpet bomb approach and post this in multiple places. Always a comment on one of our posts, and then we delete them. But sometimes people see those before we do, and we've heard from people every year who send money to somebody and they never get anything, or they get screenshots of somebody else's ticket, or they just get nothing. So not that everybody's going to hear this podcast, but for this or any place that you see, really only buy them through Ticket Leap or at the gate if we're selling at the gate. We will announce if something is sold out. Otherwise, tickets are always available at the gate for our shows. But really seriously, beware of ticket scammers, because they're out there. They look real and they're not. We do our best. If we get people coming to us and they're looking to get rid of tickets for a show that's not sold out and we don't give refunds, we will say, go to certain local community Facebook pages and post there. And I'll come in and I'll vouch for you in the comments, because I know you're real. But for the most part, we don't do refunds. Don't buy tickets from anybody else.
So the best thing we can do is to tell you folks to jump on the tickets when they're put up for sale, and you say, wow, that's going to be a pretty big event. They might sell out. Then don't wait around. Jump on them right away, and you won't have the problem. And we have a great lot crew. If we get to that 650 sellout, there's 1 or 2 spaces. If you drive up to the gate, we might be able to shovel you into a space. May not, like Virgil said, it might not be an ideal space, but if you bring folding chairs or something, you can move to where you can see a little bit better. And just be glad that we have such a large drive-in, because if that place wasn't as huge as it is, well, they would sell out even faster.
Oh, yeah. And then you put on top of it, the convenience of us offering the ability to stay and extend your pass, which takes up a big space on the lot. If we didn't offer that, we could likely up that ticket number significantly. But again, this is what we offer. This is who we are. And this is kind of a peek behind the curtain to the stuff that certainly Mark has to deal with these on a daily basis when it comes to these big events. Thank God we haven't had any ticket debacles like we did with Joe Bob, but we really have been able to find the way things work best for us. And I know it over time, the fan base catches on, but we do hate it to see a fan either get scammed or a fan be upset that they missed out, and we know how things go. Sometimes you don't have the money when things are announced, you're saving up, you're waiting a week and blah, blah, blah. So,
and along the same lines too, I will go in and I'll ban and block and delete anybody offering tickets for sale. And I will also delete any messages where people are looking for tickets, because the scammers can get to people that way too, and we never see it. And that's happened to people we know, where they said they were looking for tickets. Somebody contacted them, they sold them something and gave them nothing. And so I tell people it goes both ways. No offers or requests will be allowed. We won't block the requests because I think those are real people, but the offers are too often just terrible people out there. And as far as buying tickets at the gate when we're sold out, don't expect to be able to do that, because there were people for some of our earlier shows this season. I don't remember what they were, but they were so passionate about coming to a show that had been sold out for weeks. They messaged us and they said they were driving up from somewhere in the Mid-South because they felt lucky, and they were hoping there would be tickets freed up. And I was just like, oh God, don't, there's no guarantee. I hate to have people drive. That's why we do the advance now too, is in the old days, you would find out there was a sellout when you got there, and you might've driven hours and maybe booked a hotel to find out you can't do it. Now, at least with the advance tickets in our social media, we can tell people don't come anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And it's a good segue, because we ran into this most recent event that we had when it comes to merch and supply for merch. That's another thing that we really have tried our best to figure out over the last couple years, being able to offer merchandise for as many shows as possible without shooting ourselves in the foot. And by that, I mean, we call it the Goonies scenario. So last year we sold out the Goonies. It was a free offering. We offered free tickets, and those spots we asked people to reserve filled up so fast, and we were so ready. We ordered kid-size t-shirts in every single size, different colors. It was a whole shebang. And then on the day of the show, less than 50% of the people actually showed up and had the urgency to show up. So we were left with, and still have, a ton of Goonies shirts that, for an event that was really meant to boost our sales, bring people in and hope that they spend in the stand, really hurt us, because t-shirts now, they're not cheap. Even for us, the base price is not cheap. And you times that by hundreds, and we're talking about thousands of dollars. So what we have done this year is used those pre-sales as a gauge to say, okay, this is looking like it's going to get to so-and-so number. It's looking like it's going to get to this. The downside with that is we see a lot of our shows blow up the week of or 2 weeks before, as it's getting on people's radar and the word is starting to spread.
And we need to order those t-shirts at least 3 weeks ahead of time too. So
Correct.
We're basing all of these guesstimates on what the numbers look like almost a month away from the show, figuring, and we have our own internal voodoo logic of, well, if it says 150 in this kind of show, it might be 300 people.
Right. And it's one of those things where we always try to play it safe. And the way we look at it is, if something does sell out, whether it's a poster or a t-shirt or a limited edition piece of merch, that's good. That's what we want. We never want people to be disappointed that they missed out on something. But that's really the reasoning behind it. And it was made even easier a decision this year when we partnered with Chris at LVAC, who does all of our merchandise, for our merch bin, which is online sales of event t-shirts after the event, where we have the ability to have people order again, pre-orders, and do another printing. It makes it a lot more manageable for us versus trying to figure out what that balance is, where we get to the finish line on a 2-day event and just sell out of t-shirts. 9 times out of 10, that's never going to happen. So it is hard, because I see people angry that I got tickets for Saturday, everything's going to be gone on Friday. We certainly do our best, and it's, even if it is gone, it doesn't mean that you can't get it per se. I know a lot of people have that,
instant gratification.
Yes,
I was going to say, point of sale right there, right then.
Yeah. And it's, I do get it. I've gone to concerts, purchased things, and brought it home, and it's a piece of the memory, and we never want to take that away. But that's really the reasoning behind that. And as much as we try to limit that, inevitably it's going to happen. We can't expect there to be a sellout every single weekend and play to those numbers when it comes to merch.
And as you indicated with the Goonies shirts, these shirts are amazing. I mean, the designs we have are great, but once the event is over, it's really hard to get rid of, shy of literally getting rid of it, merch from previous events. Even though if the design is cool, it's the heat is off basically. So if you can't sell it during that event, as we said, Goonies was a year ago, more than a year ago. We've had shirts from some other events that have hung around for a couple of years, because for some of the things, if you weren't there, it's like you don't necessarily want that thing. So we try to order enough so that we can satisfy as many people as possible and sell out and not have any left over.
Yeah. And some people might have noticed that some of the event t-shirts did not have dates this year. That was a conscious choice with some events, knowing, hey, we may have t-shirts left over. And if it's a design that isn't dated, it makes it 100 times easier to sell when we're out at conventions and the punk rock markets and things like that. And that's speaking firsthand as the guy who has tried to sell those Goonies shirts, so that's just another, again, inside baseball kind of situation. But I mean, pretty much the way that it works is we have incredible managers managing these departments and doing their best to really have one goal, which is to make the experience of the guest mind-blowing. And Beth, every single week, is just like rocking it and rolling it with her ideas. And same thing with Sandy. She's just naturally has this connection with her customers, the people that come and see her on a weekly basis. So it's really been a nice shift this year to have folks really, really take ownership of their departments beyond what it ever has been.
Yes, and that's the nice thing about the people that we have in all these different positions. They love their jobs. They're really into it. They know what to do and when to do it, and they basically need very little direction from Virgil or me or Mark. They're really good at what they do, and we truly appreciate that.
Yeah, and it is the group effort, I made a video today that I sent over to Mark for the Patreon about an experience that just happened, to timestamp it a little bit. So I was talking to one of our Patreon members, Sergio, during one of our Patreon screenings on site. And I was telling him about social media and how much of a game it is and how hard it is to kind of balance personality with promotion. And looking at and talking to now a lot of drive-in owners through the podcast, we see what other theaters do, and it seems some of them have professional photographers that go around on any given night that they're open, getting beautiful shots of families enjoying the night. And that's a humongous appeal. Seeing people enjoying it is a beautiful sell on the social medias. So Sergio offered his services. He teaches photography, and he's like, hey, anytime that I'm here, I'm going to bring up my camera, get some photos for you guys. I'll send it over through Gmail, Google folder, whatever. And you guys can use that as a means to promote. He did that on David Lynch weekend, and the shots were stunning, just unbelievable, professional, really adding an element that we can't always capture. We're busy in any moment on the lot. To pull our phones out and try to set up a beautiful shot isn't always easy, as much as we do all have on our phones. But I got to talking to him about, on that David Lynch night, about drones, and how I had noticed that Benji's this year had clearly invested into a drone or brought somebody in who has a drone and was getting these really beautiful shots of the marquee or the screen, still shots. We're not talking about, video, just nice, beautiful, high angle shots. And he put it out there where I was so nervous about investing in a drone because I have no experience with one. The idea of tossing over $1,000 into something that, on the surface seems like I could break this thing almost instantly. So just like the Mahoning always delivers, he showed up with a big old suitcase, brought it into Jeff, And I cracked this puppy open, and sure enough, it is a drone, a professional drone. And he reached out to me and said, look, it's under warranty. If something happens to this, they will replace it for me 100%. He's like, do not feel worried that you're going to break it. Don't feel worried that, you're going to lose it. He said, no matter what happens to this thing, it's okay. And it was just so inspiring and uplifted my spirit in such a way because, that's just the Mahoning to a T. There's only so much that we can do on our own. And then suddenly somebody just brings another element to the table that very well may become a staple of what we do. And it's just like everything across the board. It really takes those folks who take ownership of it and love it more than anything else that they love, that they want to give to it. And it really makes the magic happen. But it's very difficult once we get into the push of the season, managing the crowds, managing everything in general. I remember last year we put out the post at the end of the year. 200 films is what we ran last year. And I can guarantee it, we are going to beat that number this year. That's staggering. So on any given night, I'll answer an email back late and I'll apologize and be like, we're juggling, 50 other events. So it's not that it's off of our radar, but it's a constant balls in the air situation.
And a lot of things to handle. One of the things for me, it's always like my brain is never in the present. I'm thinking about next week, especially if a show sells out. As soon as I hear a show sells out, it's like, well, I don't have to worry about promoting that anymore. That's done. I'll move on to the next thing that needs a little help. At any given moment, like I seriously hardly ever know what day it is or much more than that, because I'm always thinking about what's the next Television Tuesday? What's Television Tuesday 3 weeks out? We now have, if you don't know, go to our website and sign up. We have email newsletter that goes out weekly that shows all the films that are showing that week. And then at the bottom, it shows what's showing the next 2 weeks. And you can click through and buy tickets straight through that. We also now have a phone number that I set up for us. It's like a movie phone thing, a movie showtimes thing. And that's 484-613-1314. Not for leaving messages, although a lot of people still do, but it's a way to hear what all of our showtimes are. So my brain is always kind of in the future as to what's coming up, and it is hard to keep it straight sometimes, and to necessarily, I try to get back to everybody as quickly as possible, because you want to run the place like you would love a theater to be run where you were a customer, and people often will thank us for such quick replies to things. So I say publicly, if I take too long to get back to you, it's because I want to give you my full attention, or I'm trying to figure out the answer.
Yeah, there's so much.
Very good.
But we've heard it from so many people. It's that customer interaction that really sets us apart on a regular basis. Almost daily, we've been getting these incredible detailed reviews, which we share with the crew, of people who just love the experience on every single level and are kind of bombarded and knocked over by the experience that we offer people for $10. So there's a reason I think that people truly fall in love with the place and it becomes their comfortable environment to be in on a weekly basis.
What's interesting too is that occasionally, and I'm not bragging, I see them all, I'm telling you, the majority of our Google reviews are 5 stars, which feels great. And occasionally you get a bad review, and I don't get mad at that. I'm always like, well, what happened there? Like, usually I always feel like somebody came expecting, they weren't ready for what the place is. They were expecting something different, because when you look at the numbers, it's not like we decided to be terrible one night. I think it's like it's expectations, and you want to kind of correct their misconceptions if that's what it was. Certainly apologize if we did do anything incorrectly, but it feels great and kind of weird to have such a uniform number of kind of rave reviews. It's just like, this is this thing my friends and I do, and these people are talking about it like it's Disneyland. And I think for some people, it is the happiest place on earth. I've actually read that in reviews about us, which is mind-blowing and wonderful.
Yeah. And the reach is just crazy. Every single year it gets bigger and bigger. This year, more than any other year, we can see the new customers, and really have been feeling that love. People coming in and making a point to say, I've been waiting to come here for years. Saw the documentary, been waiting. So we're definitely hitting a stride as far as the point in our season, but also with the Mahoning being on people's radar.
It's an authentic experience. It's not, it's a wonderful staff. It's wonderful people to be around. And I've been in this business long enough. I know when I'm around wonderful people. We have a great staff. It's also an authentic experience. When you're on the property and you can't see beyond the hedges and the tall trees that we have that are really nice, it's 1950s again. It's, and the place opened in 49. So it could be late 40s, could be early 50s, mid 50s. That's where you're at, and that's what you're experiencing. The last thing we want to do is modernize it. That wrecks it.
Well, I've said that out loud more than once this season, where I was watching a print that was perfect. And I sit in the front row and there's nothing between me and the screen. And I said to Val or somebody else near me, I'm like, this is exactly what it was like the first time this movie would have played here. Watching Munster Go Home. It's 1966 as far as my eyes are concerned right now. And it's great.
Right.
Yeah, it's
right.
like time traveling. That's the thing I love about
yes.
the experiences with the movies on the lot is, the idea of getting a theatrical experience with a movie that you have so loved for so long. It is another level for people, and you can see them getting bowled over and becoming regulars. And it's really inspiring to what we do. And everything, going back to the authentic thing, Jeff, everything is authentic. Nothing is really ever pushed, We see a lot of drive-ins trying to add elements that we do, and sometimes it just feels pushed, there is a true authentic nature to the love of these movies and the choices that we make that makes them Mahoning,
I don't say this very often, but every now and then I do. The thing that makes us different in many ways is the fact that there are some drive-ins that the only authentic thing about them is the dirt they're sitting on. In other words, everything has been renovated or rebuilt completely, except for the field, except for the dirt. There are some drive-ins where it's not the original ticket booth, it's not the original concession stand, it's not the original screen. It's that there's nothing original except the dirt that it's sitting on. Whereas at the Mahoning, everything is original. The screen, the ticket booth, the concession stand. Most of the equipment we have is original. So that's just a plus. I'm not putting any other drive-in down. I would never want to do that. But when you come to the Mahoning, that's a plus. It's authentic.
Absolutely. And, speaking on the movies that we all love, this year we made the choice to try some new things out. And the way that we worked our calendar last year with Sundays was our play day. That was our day that we tested out the waters on some titles to see what would stick and if they could shift to a weekend. And it was a really great way to not only try things out, but do more and work with more people, which is probably the most exciting thing for me. The fact that we have so many humongous entities wanting to work with the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, and making the room for them on the calendar is something we've been able to manage really well this season. It's been a lot of work for the staff, without a doubt, but I think it's worked out incredibly well. I said it to Jeff several times. It's the cake and eat it too scenario where we can have an AGFA triple feature and play some of the most off-the-wall bonkers movies that anybody has ever seen on the Mahoning screen. And then the next day we can do a sellout Ninja Turtles double feature or triple feature, whatever. And it gives both fan bases a bite at the apple on any given weekend, which was our hope with the programming. We used to break it up where it was weekends. We'd have a family weekend, and we'd have a edgier weekend. Where now this year it's kind of blended together, where on any given weekend, if you like the edgy programming that the Mahoning brings, you can likely get it, certainly on a Tuesday, if not on the weekend. And for the families, or if you're a genre fan, you don't have to wait, half a season to get to the thing that you love. So I've had such a great time with some of these single day nights, because it really does add another element that most drive-ins don't get to play with. for our Dazed and Confused screening, we had so many locals come out. And there was an older couple that came into the projection booth, and they were just in awe of the place, you know? And we were telling them about the things that we had just played. And she's like, "Oh, how long is Dazed and Confused playing for?" I was like, "Well, it's just tonight." She's like, "Just tonight?" You know? It's like there is an urgency, I think, to all of these shows when a lot of them are a one night only experience. It's very much like the concerts that come through your town. If you're not available on that night that they're coming through, you're just kind of SOL. So the Mahoning's event space and event draw is has a lot of crossover with, you know, the music performers that come through the area. There is that urgency where it's like, well, I'm not missing that one. I ain't missing my chance to see that.
A lot of the single night shows too are shows that really wouldn't sustain multiple days. Like Beach Blanket Bingo was one of the most fun nights I've had at the theater this year.
Oh my god!
But it wasn't a huge crowd, and if you spread that across 2 days, you're just kind of losing or wasting money essentially. And one of the things I thought of earlier when talking about the family shows and close up to the horror shows, it was a Sunday night. It was a wonderfully well sold family show. And at the end of the night, Mike was on the mic. He was Mike was not on another man named Mike. Mike was on the microphone, and he was talking about, you know, thank you for coming tonight, and please join us on Tuesday night for I Spit on Your Grave. I started cracking up. I'm like, maybe they'll bring the kids back for that. Maybe just the grown-ups will come back for that one.
Yeah, I hope just the grown-ups.
But it's that type of stuff. There is a marquee element to what the Mahoning does, where it's going to catch your eye. It's going to catch your eye no matter what your fandom is, no matter what your love of movies is. And I love seeing the casual movie fan come, the person who clearly is, you know, the disposable movie fan, where you can go pay your, you know, $15, rent your seat, get a couple hours entertainment, and you're out of there.
That's what I call normal people.
Yeah, and you see them totally convert, where it's like, oh my gosh, like now I see what this is about. This is a deeper love and appreciation for not just movies, but the experience of movie going. And I think that's really where the community is strongest. Is we're all kind of cinephiles, and on any night you can walk around and kind of pick the brain and chat with people about all things movies, and it never gets old.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I always say every night is like a concert or a convention. Everybody there, just about everybody there, likes that same thing. You go to a concert and you can turn to anybody. If you're going to a Mott the Hoople concert, you can turn to anybody and go, you know, that third album. And it's the same way with our place. If you're going on Vincent Price night, you can be like, now, which Fives movie did you like better? To anybody there, and they know what you're talking about.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
The community appeal of it all, you know, and that's the magic in the sauce that, you know, we can't really plan on. As much as we put the structure, the calendar together, that's the fan base. That's the magic that the fan base has brought to what we do. You know, we support the fandom, they bring it.
You can say just show two Ghostbusters movies, show 3 Ghostbusters movies, and bring a screen accurate replica of the car, and then 50 or 60 people just show up in full Ghostbusters costumes. They help make the event for us.
Yeah, and that's on certain nights, you know, that is going to be the case. Turtles was the perfect example where we went all out to try to tap every element of fandom, whether it's you're a comic book fan, whether you're loving the TV show and the cartoon, whether you're a movie guy. We really represent everything on the lot, or try to, when it comes to these promoted fan events, which we've become known for. We really leaned into it this year with calling events fan events, but there is no better fan experience than coming and hanging with 650 rabid Ninja Turtle fans or Ghostbuster fans or whatever it is. It's unbelievable. Right.
Right.
Waiting for
it certainly is. Now, you know what it starts with, even before the people, I guess I'm getting a little historic again, but I can't help it. Even before people even see the drive-in, the first thing they see is that marquee out at the end of the road with the big red arrow. And that reminded me of the winter when we lost that arrow, when we had a blizzard, a lot of straight line winds, and the old arrow was so bad it just blew right off the top. It just took the whole arrow right off and splattered it all over the ground. And I was surprised by the number of people that wrote into our website and our email messages said, well, don't worry about it. You still have the rectangular part. Just hang the letters on it so people know what you're seeing and just let it go at that. And I thought, are you nuts? I thought, not that this person isn't thinking it through, but it's the wrong attitude. In other words, if we just let the thing fall apart, it's okay, we got the rectangular part, who cares? But that big red arrow is like the first thing you see because it's fire engine red. So it's like I said, no way. I said, I'm getting that rebuilt. I said, it's going to be historically accurate to the way it was before that blizzard came through. And that's what we did. And I don't mind saying it now, it's several years ago, but that cost $19,000 and people thought I was crazy. I'm like, no, that is what you have to do if you want to keep the experience alive. And this is the first thing they see when they turn onto our entrance road, so to speak. That's the first thing they see. So it's got to be right.
Yeah. And it's a huge piece of our branding. It's on all of our T-shirts. It's
right.
maybe the most recognizable thing about the Mahoning,
Right.
And that really carries through to every single thing that we do. We're never going to settle for the easy route. We're never going to settle for half-assing it, Even on nights where it's, a lighter attended night, we really try to pull out all the stops and still make it as amazing a fan experience as possible. We just did Police Academy. And Police Academy is a movie that has its love, has its fandom, but the crowd wasn't humongous. But the people that were there were so into it. It was infectious, the laughter, where you're just like, these people are having the time of their lives. Doesn't matter if it's 10 people or 650. Every single time people come here, they are making those memories and putting all the stuff that we do into action. This reminds me of something, not to segue. I just did a interview with Box Office Pro, which blew my mind when they reached out, because, running indoor theaters and really being in the world of theaters, one thing that you always see on the manager desk
giant
is that
container of Maylocks.
Sorry. Yeah.
I'm saying.
Besides the Maalox and the Pepto-Bismol. Yeah.
It's that Box Office Pro, and it's just such a staple of the exhibitor world, and to be recognized by them was really, really special. And what I told them is pretty much the stuff that we're talking about here, where what the magic of the Mahoning is such a team effort, in that everybody brings a love, everybody brings a passion that is unmatched, that it just becomes infectious for people. And I think that is, more than the programming, what really makes the Mahoning special. It's a place where you can come and really be yourself and really be comfortable in a world that it's not easy to do that. So we feel very lucky and very blessed to have been able to reach this status, and feeding this beast every single day. It is an honor. As much work as it is, it's such an honor.
Yeah, beautiful.
Imagine a man so powerful, his fists can penetrate a 6-inch post, whose head, elbows, knees, and feet are loaded weapons, ready to explode. Lo Lee is the stranger, a martial arts master. Lee Van Cleef is the gunfighter, the legendary Man of Iron. He carries luck for the ladies and life on his hip. Columbia Pictures presents The Stranger and the Gunfighter.
Welcome to Monterey,
where the law is left dangling at the end of a rope.
the hanging town.
Lee Van Cleef, Lo Lee, two fantastic fighting machines. The Stranger and the Gunfighter. Together, they can do anything. Rated PG. Parental guidance suggested.
We have a lot of conversations in the projection booth during the films. If it's a film I'm not, interested in watching, I'll sit in that spare chair next to Jeff's desk and we'll tell tall tales and so forth. And at one point you mentioned to me that there were plans in the past to add a second story to the Mahoning snack bar. What was the deal with that?
The deal with that was when everything looked like it was going digital, which it did, obviously. The first idea was they were going to gut the original projection booth and turn that into an arcade and put arcade games in there, and then build a digital booth directly in front of that one, attached to it. So they were going to, wipe out the portholes, wall that up, and build a digital booth right in front of the original booth. And that one I can't vouch for because I never saw the blueprint, but then they decided, no, we'll cut a hole in the roof and we'll put a stairway up from the original projection booth up to a second projection booth built on top of the concession stand. Now, it wasn't going to be a full second floor, just a projection booth on top of the roof, on top of the old one. That's what they decided to go with finally, and those I have the blueprints of somewhere. I'd have to find them now, but somewhere those do exist. And wow. I'm so glad I got in there when I did, because we were like one summer away from that happening. One summer, because I know the next year, the guy that was there before me, he was going to do it, and man, I am so glad it didn't even take me one more year to get in there, or the place would be ruined. But oh boy. But that's it. That's the story.
I mean, there were a couple of times where the overall structure of the theater could have changed. Like when there were plans at one point for a second screen, and I know there are holes cut in the stone in the back of the kitchen area for, I believe the projection booth was going to go for that second screen. Was that the idea, that the projection booth would be back there?
Yes, if they would have gotten permission to put the second screen in from the county, yes, there would have had to have been a separate booth. And again, they probably thought, well, let's just put it out back. It'll be a shorter throw. The further they put it out back, the closer it is to that second screen. You won't need as powerful a bulb. You won't need this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm sure that in that respect, yes, it would have been a separate projection booth sitting on the ground aimed at this screen. And some of our more intrepid customers may notice that if you go towards the back where it's not overcrowded, where it's where we have some weeds and stuff growing, we don't recommend you go back there. But in case you do, you'll see that second screen lying on the ground. It's actually back there. They laid it out, started putting it together, and then found out that it was never going to be allowed to be raised, so they just stopped. So there's a partially constructed screen laying back there.
Yeah, to think what could have been, And that's, again, the destiny of our story and the...
Wait. You didn't hear the best one yet. This will make you laugh. You didn't hear this one. I don't think I ever told anybody. At one point, this guy was going to get rid of the back 5 rows and put in a miniature golf course. I kid you not. Yeah, wow. I kid you not. I just now remembered that. That was actually told to me. They were going, because it's such a large drive-in, he figured that he could wipe out the last 5 rows and put in a miniature golf course. Again, thank goodness I got there when I did.
Now,
what a mess.
I was going to say, if you added that second story projection booth, that would ruin the view of cars behind the snack bar from a lot of angles. So that, I wonder if that was in conjunction with the idea that, well, a bunch of those parking spaces are going to be no good if we put the second booth in, and we'll just put a mini golf course back there.
Wow. How about that?
You would think that they would have thought of that, since they had the blueprints, since they were that far ahead. You would thought, well, yeah, we're going to wipe out a couple of rows directly in back of the stand, but they can park on either side. It's no big deal. It's such a large drive-in. We've got so much space. Well, guess what, folks? Now we need the space for cars, just like we did when it was built. So, amen.
How about that?
Yeah, but that was the best, a miniature golf course. I thought, what kind of relations? Who's going to dig the holes? What kind? It's so dumb. every time it rains, the holes are going to fill with water. What are you going to do then? You got some guy there with a toy plastic shovel cleaning out the holes? Come on.
And the
Gee.
other difference too, when you took over it, I don't know if we've talked about this. There was what is called a corral system. So when you drove into the Mahoning,
Oh,
you drove straight through the ticket booth, and there were all these white posts that took you. If you know the theater, you'd go straight in and hook a left behind the snack bar where they would sell you tickets there. And there was like this drop down, almost like a railroad crossing barrier that could go up and down. And from there, you would then, if you've ever been to the Pike Theater in Pennsylvania, owned by the same
yeah.
person who owns the Mahoning, that has the corral system that sort of, it's like a cattle chute. It takes you all the way into one spot where you sell tickets out of the same building that you have your snack bar and your projection booth in. How long do you know was it like that?
It was like that. Boy, let's see. I got it in 2014. In 2001, when I started there, of course, that was not there yet. It was still the way we have it today, which is the original way with the original ticket booth. I'm going to say he built that about 2010. I think about 2010. We call it the Clown House now, but it's an auxiliary ticket booth. So you don't need as many people. If you do people out in the original ticket booth, you save 1 or 2 payroll expenses. So you have one person run from the concession stand to the Clown House to sell a ticket and then run back in the concession stand. And I so-and-so, because I was there at the time, I said, don't do that. I said, it's going to look ridiculous. I said, but of course he wouldn't listen to me, naturally. He was all for modernizing that place as much as he could. That's why, second story projection booth, second screen, blah, 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 because he didn't think that history had anything to do with it. So that he got away with, that he was able to do, and there wasn't anything I could do to stop him. But I'm telling you, 2014, the first thing I did when I walked in there, when I got the keys, was start pulling out those posts. The first thing I did was pull out all those posts. And I mean, I had to take a sledgehammer. They were in so deep. I had to take a sledgehammer to each one of them in order to loosen them in the ground enough that I could pull them out. And that's how I got rid of them.
Yeah. I want to say they were there. Maybe they had just gotten taken out when I got there. But it didn't run from the ticket booth that we have now. It actually ran from that gap that we have when you're waiting in line at the Mahoning. There's a little gap.
They entered on the side?
You bypassed it totally.
Yeah, that was exactly. It made that gap useless. That was the old exit. Another thing, when I first got there, the old exit, the one that we use now, that's on the right-hand side of the screen at the front of the field, like I always say, that was hedged off. That was no longer in use. Hadn't been in use in a long time. And I said to the other guy, I said, wouldn't it be nice to open up the old exit and use it again? And that's the only time he ever listened to me. We actually did that. And then that made that gap over there at the side useless. But that was the exit that had been used for years and years and years before I got there. Why they ever closed up the original one, I don't know, because it's beautiful. It's got a nice little turn in it. You've got trees on either side. You've got a grassy area. It's a beautiful exit way. So why they ever closed it off to begin with, but you couldn't even use it. It was all blocked off at the front. And he listened to me for once, and we unblocked that. We got that cleared out, and then that made the gap useless. So then he put in the corral system from the old ticket booth to the Clown House and totally bypassed that thing on the side because we didn't use it anymore. But boy, oh boy, I couldn't wait to pull those posts out. Whoa, that was fun.
Man, you think about what could have been, it is.
And almost was.
Yeah. And one of those things you really can't doubt that there is this higher power and destiny at work, the idea that all these things fell into place in a very destined way to deliver what is the Mahoning. It's unbelievable, and
it is. I call that God's blessing on the drive-in. Yes. And you figure, right? You said so yourself, and you're absolutely correct. Next year, it's 75 years old, diamond anniversary. And for a physical plant to be 75 years old and operate as well as it does, it's amazing. So don't worry, folks. We're putting your money to good use, just keeping the place going and in good condition for a 75-year-old physical plant. It's amazing.
That's right. And we'll have to be putting our heads together and have been talking a little bit about what we're going to do for our big celebration next year. As you guys know, we would never let the Diamond Anniversary pass us without some sort of celebration, but we've been kicking around some ideas. I think paying tribute to the early days is very fitting for what the Mahoning does now and what we're known for. So stay tuned for all that fun stuff. And I don't know if we need to say it after the beginning of this episode, but do not hesitate to get your tickets, guys, as we come into the end of our 2023 season. We're so excited to keep this magic rocking for you for another 75 years.
As you leave the theater, folks, please be careful. Don't let this happen to your car. Be sure to remove the speaker before you leave. If you should accidentally pull a speaker loose, please turn it in at our snack bar or box office. Thank you.
All right, and I think on that note, Jeff, take it away, my friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for coming out tonight to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. We hope you'll come back and see us again real soon. The exit is on the right-hand side of the screen at the front of the field, and most importantly, have a very safe trip home. Good night, and God bless you.